I found the book on a Tuesday morning, balanced on the flat top of the fence post at the South Bend, where Duchess likes to test her luck. It was small, no bigger than my hand, bound in dark brown leather that had gone soft at the corners from years of handling. No note, no name on the cover, just a book, sitting on a fence post like it had grown there overnight, waiting for whoever came along first. I knew it had not grown there. I knew exactly who had left it, and the knowing sent a peculiar warmth through my chest that I chose to ignore for approximately 9 seconds before picking it up. Keats, a collection of the odes and shorter poems, printed in a typeface so fine I had to hold it close to read the title page. The spine was cracked at 2 places, which told me the owner had a habit of returning to the same poems, and I found myself running my thumb along those cracks as if they were a map to something I had not been invited to see, but could not stop looking at. I tucked the book inside my coat before I had time to think about why I was hiding it. Father was at the table when I came in, drinking his coffee with the slow deliberation of a man who believes mornings should not be rushed. He looked at me over the rim of his cup the way he always does when I come back from the south pasture, as if checking whether I had returned with all my opinions intact. "Fence holding?" he said. "Holding fine," I said, and hung my coat on the peg by the door with the book still inside it. My heart was beating faster than the situation warranted, which irritated me. It was a book. People left things on fence posts all the time. Gloves, rags, the occasional hat that the wind had claimed. A book was unusual, I would grant that, but it was not a declaration of anything. It was not even addressed to me. I told myself this 3 times while I made breakfast, and I did not believe it once. I read the first poem that evening after Father had gone to bed, sitting on the porch with a lantern turned low and a blanket over my knees. The October cold had settled into the valley like something that intended to stay, and the stars were close and sharp, the way they get when the air has no moisture left to soften them. The poem was Ode to Autumn, which felt so perfectly chosen for the season that I nearly laughed. The aspens on the ridge had gone bare in the last week, their white trunks standing like bones against the dark hillside, and here was Keats writing about mists and mellow fruitfulness as if he had been sitting on this very porch and looking at this very valley. I read it twice, slowly, letting the words settle the way good bread settles, filling spaces I had not known were empty. There were marks in the margins, small pencil notes, not words exactly, but lines drawn beside certain phrases, as if someone had wanted to underline them but thought better of it and settled for a quiet gesture instead. I found one beside the line about the soft dying day, and another beside the passage about the small gnats mourning among the river willows. Whoever had marked this book loved the sounds of endings, the beauty in things that were almost gone, and that recognition hit me harder than I was prepared for. I closed the book and pressed it against my chest, and sat there for a long time, watching the dark shape of the valley and the faint glow of the Hale Ranch lamp burning in the distance. Billy arrived Wednesday morning with his usual boundless energy and his usual inability to notice anything subtle. He talked about a fox he had seen near the creek, about Mr. Perkins' new shipment of flour that smelled wrong, and about a card game he had lost to his brother, all before I had finished saddling my mare. "You look different, Billy," said Billy, squinting at me with the profound observational skills of a fence post. "I look cold, Billy. It is October." "No, it is something else." He tilted his head like a dog hearing a sound it cannot locate. "You look like you are thinking about something." "I am always thinking about something. That is what thinking is." Billy considered this for a moment, then shrugged and went to muck the stalls, and I exhaled a breath I had not realized I was holding. The book was in my coat pocket, where it had lived since Tuesday morning. I had read 4 more poems the night before, each one marked with those same quiet pencil lines, each one chosen with a care that made my throat tight in a way I could not explain to anyone, least of all myself. I spent 2 days with the Keats, reading a poem each evening, studying the margin marks like a woman reading a letter written in a language she is only beginning to learn. I noticed that he had drawn a small star beside the opening of Ode on a Grecian Urn, the line about the unheard melodies being sweeter, and I sat with that for a long while. There was something in the choice that felt deliberate, as if he were trying to say that the things left unsaid between us were not empty silences, but something richer than speech. Or I was reading too much into pencil marks in a borrowed book. That was also possible. The trouble was that both interpretations felt equally true, and I could not decide which one frightened me more. On Thursday evening, I went to the shelf in my bedroom where I kept my mother's books. They were few: a worn Bible, a collection of hymns, a slim green volume of Tennyson with gold lettering on the spine. I had not touched the Tennyson in months. It was the book my mother had read to me before I could read myself, her voice warm and low in the lamplight, her finger tracing the lines so I could follow along. After she died, I had read it alone so many times that certain pages fell open by habit, and the spine was soft as cloth in the places where her hands and mine had held it. I picked it up and held it for a long time, feeling the weight of it, which was not much, a few ounces of paper and thread and leather, the whole of my mother's voice pressed between covers. I rode to the South Bend on Friday morning before the sun had cleared the ridge. The frost was thick on the grass, and my mare's breath came in white clouds that hung in the still air like small ghosts. The fence post stood where it always stood, solid and ordinary, the flat top worn smooth by weather and years. I set the Tennyson on the post and stepped back. Then I stepped forward and adjusted it so the spine faced east toward the Hale Ranch where he would approach from. Then I told myself I was being ridiculous and turned the book so the spine faced no particular direction at all. It looked small sitting there, smaller than the Keats had looked, though they were nearly the same size. I had not written a note either, because what would I write? Here is the book my dead mother held. Here is the only thing I own that still carries the shape of her hands. I thought you should have it for a while because you left me something that made me feel less alone in a way I did not know I needed. You cannot write that on a scrap of paper and tuck it inside a book. You just leave the book and hope the person who finds it understands what it cost you to set it down and walk away. I rode home without looking back, though I wanted to. The morning light was catching the tops of the bare aspens on the ridge, turning them gold against the gray sky, and the valley was quiet in the way that only early mornings in October can be quiet, as if the whole world is holding its breath between one season and the next. That evening, I sat on the porch and looked east toward the Hale Ranch. The lamp was burning, the way it always burned, a warm point of light no bigger than a fingertip held at arm's length. I wondered if he was reading the Tennyson. I wondered which poem he would read first, and whether he would notice the place where the page was soft for my mother's thumb, and whether he would understand that I had given him something I did not give to anyone. Duchess was standing by the fence again, her dark shape barely visible against the pasture, facing east, as if she too were watching for something. I had stopped questioning Duchess's motives long ago. She went where she wanted and looked where she pleased, and if she happened to look in the same direction I was looking, that was her business and not mine. The stars came out slowly, the way they do when the sky is very clear, appearing one at a time like words being chosen with great care. I thought about Emmett's pencil marks beside the line about unheard melodies, and I thought about my mother's hands on the Tennyson, and I thought about the fact that somewhere across the valley a man I was not supposed to speak to was holding a book that carried the last warmth of a woman he had never met. There are conversations that happen without words, without even the pretense of accident or practicality. A book left on a fence post is not a fence repair, or a stray cow, or a rainstorm that forces two people into the same small room. It is a choice, made in the quiet of a morning when no one is watching, and it cannot be explained away as anything other than what it is. I did not know what to call the feeling that had settled into the center of my chest, steady and warm and entirely inconvenient, but I knew it had a weight to it now, like a book held close, and I knew that whatever I chose to do with it, I could no longer pretend it was not there.